Hello everyone, you're welcome to today's lecture on oil palm production. So oil palm is believed to have originated from Africa, especially in West Africa. But we've also found oil palm being produced in Congo, in South Sudan, Tanzania, and some parts of Uganda. So in Uganda, it was first introduced in the 1930s at the Entebbe Botanical Gardens. And then the second formal introduction was in the 1960s, where hybrid seed was brought into the country from Nigeria. And from there, seedlings were sent to Kabalore, to Bundibujo, and some were planted at Kituza. So oil palm is scientifically known as Elaeis guineacis, and it is known to be native of Guinea coast of West Africa, like I earlier mentioned, and it is one of the largest of the palm species that belong to the family Palmae. So this particular species produces much more oil per hectare compared to any other oil crop that is known. The oil palm is a single-stemmed plant, and it has an apical bud which produces long feather-like leaves which are in a regular sequence on the stem. It can also have 36 to 40 leaves which reach the length of 5 to 8 meters, especially when it is in a very fertile place. Now, each leaf has 250 to 350 leaflets, and it can weigh up to 8 kilograms. So the palm tree has no branches, and its stem is upright, and it goes up to 60 centimeters in diameter, but can reach a height of 15 meters after about 25 years. So the years of the peak of production are from 6 to 15 years, but the hybrid variety starts production from as early as 3 years. The oil palm also has fibrous roots, so it has a fibrous root system, and most of the roots are concentrated on the top layer of the soil as far away as 20 meters from the plant base. So between the plant base 20 meters, you can still find plant feeding from that particular area. So some roots may actually go deeper or penetrate deeper into the soil to improve on the anchorage or for plant support. So oil palm is also known to be monoecious, and the inflorescences are borne in the leaf axil, and normally one is carried by a leaf. So it is monoecious in nature because it bears the male and the female flowers on the same plant. So the female inflorescence develops into the fruits that bear thousands of fruits at maturity. The palm tree bears its fruits in bunches varying in weight of 10 to 40 kilograms. The bunch consists of the outer fruits and the inner fruits. So the outer fruits are the ones that you're seeing. They are normally darker in color. And then the inner fruits are somehow flattened and more pigmented compared to the outer fruits. But we also have a few parthenocarpic fruits within this bunch which develop without fertilization, and these cannot bear oil. The fruit is a sessile drupe weighing between 3 to 30 grams. Now we are talking about one single fruit from a bunch. And this particular fruit consists of the exocarp, which is the skin that we are seeing around. It has the mesocarp, which is the tissue that we are seeing, and it's the one that bears the oil. It also has the endocarp, which is the shell, and together the endocarp and the kernel form what we know as the seed. Now let's look at the classification of oil palm. There are three varieties that are known based on the thickness of the fruit shell. Now we have what we call the Dura, which is the wild type. It has a thick shell of 2 to 8 millimeters. It has low to medium mesocarp content between 35 to 55%. It has no fiber around the nut. Then we have the Piscifera, which is thin-shelled, or it has no shell at all, and it has only fiber around the kernel. Then we have the Tenera, which is the hybrid, a cross between Dura and Piscifera, and this one is thin-shelled, having a diameter between 0.5 to 4 millimeters, and it is surrounded by fiber. And then it also has a medium to high mesocarp, which is 65 to 90%. Hence, it is more commercially cultivated because it has the ability of providing the highest amount of oil. This is a representation of what I was discussing. We have the Dura, which is the wild type. We have the Piscifera, and these were crossed to form the Tenera, which is the hybrid. Now let's look at the importance of oil palm. So oil palm is the leading vegetable oil producer per unit area of land, and we see that it produces 10 times more oil than the oil we get from soybean. It also contributes to the world's exports. It also provides employment to a number of people, starting from those who do nursery bed management, those who do planting, those who do field management, harvesting, as well as those who work in factories where processing is done. We also see that the plant is a rich source of beta-carotene, which is associated with a reduction of the risk of throat and lung cancer. So people who use oil from oil palm have lesser chances of getting throat and lung cancer. It also has anti-tumor properties, and it is rich in vitamin E, which ensures longer shelf life of all palm-based products. It's also a source of income since the economic lifetime for a plant is about 25 years. So the people who plant this crop are able to start harvesting from as early as 3 years, and they'll continue harvesting for as long as 25 years. It also has a variety of industrial uses. For example, it is used in manufacturing of biscuits, ice cream, soap, detergents, shampoos, and also frying fat. So now let's look at the ecological requirements for oil palm. It requires deep, well-drained and well-textured volcanic soils, or alluvial soils, or marine clay soils. It also requires well-distributed rainfall of about 1,800 to 2,000 millimeters per year. The mean monthly temperature ranges between 28 and 34 degrees Celsius. It is also a water-loving crop, and therefore it requires adequate irrigation in case there is little rainfall within the area where it has been planted. It can also respond very well to drip irrigation, so farmers who have the money to install this irrigation system can help to reduce the labor in application of water by watering. Let's now look at nursery bed management. So a good nursery will help a farmer to produce healthy, vigorous, nice looking seedlings, and it will also help one reduce the number of abnormal seedlings. So if one chooses to start with a nursery, they can use two methods. One is the one-stage nursery, where no pre-nursery is required. So straight away, one plants the seeds in large poly bags, which are about 38 centimeters to 51 centimeters. And with this capacity, one can raise a seedling to about 11 months without having to transplant it or to change it into another polythene bag. But the two-stage nursery will require one to do a pre-nursery where you plant in smaller polypods for about 3 to 4 months, and then you change or transplant the seedlings into larger polypods for the remaining 8 months of the growing period of a seedling. Now, these are the advantages and disadvantages of the two types of nurseries. The single stage nursery avoids transplanting shock because you do not have to shift the seedlings from one polypot or polybag to another. Then there is no requirement for extra labor or materials for one to change from a pre-nursery stage to the main nursery. But there is also a disadvantage where we see that supervision becomes harder because the seedlings are in a bigger piece of area compared to when you use a double stage. And then management practices would also take more time because the seedlings are spread in a vast area, and then large amounts of water are required to cover the whole nursery area. And then for the double stage, where we start from the smaller polybags to the bigger ones, we see that more labor efficiency is in this method because the management practices are done in a compact area. We also see that culling is carried out quickly and easily at the pre-nursery stage, resulting into fewer empty bags because you're able to see the polybags that are missing or where the seeds did not germinate, and you replace them. So it is easier to reduce the number of pots that are missing seedlings. But the main disadvantage is that there is normally transplanting shock that may occur when you're transplanting from one pot to another. For setting up a nursery, one, you fill the polybags with fertile topsoil, which has medium texture, with friable consistency and good water holding capacity. So whichever area you're going to have your nursery in should ensure that the potting material is made up of fertile topsoil and soil of good quality, especially soil having very good soil physical properties. This is mixed with coarse sand to improve the texture even much more, and use perforated polybags so that water can easily drain out excess water. And the polybags should at least be 38 centimeters wide and 50 centimeters in terms of the height. And then the gauge or the thickness of the polybag should be at least 0.012 centimeters or 0.12 millimeters. And we believe that would provide the best strength as the seedling grows up, because if you use a lesser gauge, that means that by the time you transplant at 11 months, the polythene bag will just be tearing, which is not a good thing when it comes to transportation. We also see that it is recommended that you use superior planting material, especially from the hybrid variety, which is Tenera. And then you do not sow seeds too deep within the polybags because that will reduce the speed at which they germinate. So when you're burrowing, the seeds do not exceed maximum 2 centimeters, but the recommended is 1.9 centimeters below the surface. And ensure that the darker side faces downwards and the lighter side faces upwards. Now the darker side is the side where the radicle is, and the lighter one is where the plumule is. Okay, so After planting, you're supposed to provide shade to protect the young seedlings that have sprouted. Then you're supposed to ensure that you thin gradually and remove excess leaves. So whenever a plant gets 3 leaves, you have to remove one. So in case a plant gets to 6 leaves, you're supposed to remove 2 leaves. So as soon as the plants reach the 3rd month, you're supposed to start pruning or removing excess leaves in that sequence. Then you're also supposed to water the seedlings to ensure that they have enough moisture to grow well. And it is recommended that per seedling you should provide between 0.5 to 2 liters of water, depending on how big the seedlings are. You're also supposed to carry out weeding in the nursery, and this is in different areas. One is you're supposed to do weeding before you set up the nursery or before you bring the polypots that have been filled with soil. And then the second one is that you're supposed to weed within the pots and then between the pots. So when you're weeding within the pots, you're supposed to use hands. But when you're doing the weeding between the poly bags, you can either use hands or you can use herbicides. But in case you use herbicides, ensure that you do not spray the seedlings as well. Within the nursery, we are also supposed to control pests and diseases by one, ensuring that we use pesticides and fungicides for diseases because the most common diseases are those that are fungal diseases. So using benlets together with carbamates would be a good combination to help you fight the notorious nursery pests and diseases. Then also remove abnormal seedlings from the main nursery every 3 months, and also apply fertilizers to ensure that the vigor of the plant is maintained. Now it is recommended that you use liquid based fertilizers or you dissolve compound fertilizers in water to ease application. It is recommended that in the first 3 months you provide 5 grams per seedling of a mixture of urea, 50% urea, 25% potassium chloride, and 25% magnesium sulfate. And then after 3 months, until the time you transplant the seedling, you're supposed to apply 8 grams of the same mixture. Then after 11 months, ensure that you transplant the seedlings because they will be ready. But also ensure that before this time, you gradually harden off the seedlings so that by the time you take them to the field, they are more used to the field environment so that they are not much affected. So for planting, oil palm is planted in a triangular system at a spacing of 9 by 9 by 9 meters, which would enable one to accommodate about 143 plants per hectare. Now, the purpose of using this system is to maximize space usage and ensure that each tree has sufficient room to grow without overcrowding. It also improves light interception. It also improves airflow within the field and enables every plant to access the right amount of nutrients, hence ensuring optimum growth of the plants. So planting is normally done in a season where there is rain. For those who have 2 rainy seasons, it's fine. But the best period that is recommended is June to December. Now seedlings of 10 to 14 months, because remember we said that the seedlings will keep in the nursery up to about 11 months, but one can start transplanting from 10 months to 14 months. So that means someone shouldn't exceed 14 months without transplanting the seedlings. And after planting them, ensure that you plant cover crops, especially those of leguminous species. And these are supposed to help you to reduce the rate of erosion, but also help in fixing nitrogen within the soil. But they also reduce the need for weeding all the time, because they will reduce the rate at which the weeds come up. But we can also do intercropping in the early years of development, but it's also recommended that we only plant pulses, cereals, vegetables, and grasses, which do not grow so big, which do not overcompete with the oil palm plants. So if you want to plant heavy feeders, it is not really recommended for you to intercrop them into the oil palm plantation. So it's also recommended that you avoid tuber crops because these are heavy feeders. So when intercropping, you keep on increasing the space between the crops or the intercrops and the main plants, which are the palm plants. So within the first year of production, you leave 1 meter between the plant and the intercrop, and then you keep on increasing. In the second year, it should go to 2 meters. In the third year, it should go to 3 meters, because we believe that every year that passes, the roots of the palm tree will become longer than before. Then the other husbandry practice is soil fertility management. And soil fertility management can be either by use of non-chemical methods, for example, application of organic fertilizer or manure. Using mulch that can decompose can also help in improving fertility. As the mulch decomposes, it will be adding more nutrients into the soil. And then we also see that you can plant leguminous plants that can fix nitrogen within the soil. But for those that are into commercial production, it's inevitable to use chemical fertilizers. And those that are more recommended, urea, which has nitrogen, single and triple superphosphate, which provide phosphorus, and then muriate of potash, which provides potassium. And we also have dolomite and caeserite, which provide magnesium. And all these are very important for proper growth and increased yield of the palm oil trees or the oil palm trees. So when we are applying fertilizers, it is recommended that we apply them twice a year, where we have 2 rainy seasons. And this means that we will apply in April, and we will apply again in between September and October. And in areas where we have 1 rainy season, you apply at the beginning of the rain season and at the end of the rain season. And the mode of application, basically most people use ring application, but you should depend on the age of the palm tree, on the rate of application, how much do you have to apply, the solubility of the fertilizer you're using, and many other factors. So for example, if it is nitrogen fertilizer, when a plant is between 3 to 4 years, you can apply in the weeded area, the weeded circle, which is the ring method, around the plant on the root zone, where we expect most of the roots to be. Weeding, that I have already talked about, saying that you weed around the plant for areas where you do not want to intercrop. You can use cover crops, but if you're intercropping, then you can do manual weeding to ensure that you do not injure the plants. But in fully established gardens, you can also do slashing. The most common weeds that are seen in these plantations are grasses, sages, broadleaf weeds. We have ferns, brackens, we have epiphytes, and other volunteer oil palm seedlings that were not originally planted. In case you do not want to do the weeding, you can also do mulching. And mulching is normally done by using the fronds or the leaves that are cut off from the mature palm trees. So these can be used and they are put between rows within the garden. We have talked about the cover crops where we use legumes because they fix nitrogen into the soil. So we can use mucuna species. We can also use Praria javanica, which is the Chinese arrowroot or the Japanese arrowroot. So these cover the entire area, but you have to ensure that you keep on ringweeding because they can end up creeping on the plant. So you have to keep on controlling them, and you leave the area around the oil palm about 60 centimeters free from weeds. Then if you plant cover crops, we also recommend that you only use the herbicide around the plant and ensure that you do not spray on the plant. Pruning is also a very important husbandry practice, and it is done to remove mainly the dead leaves, the unnecessary leaves, and then other volunteer plants that like epiphytes that grow onto the palm tree. So you're supposed to prune once every year, and it is normally suitable to prune between July and October when the harvesting has reduced, when there are fewer bunches to harvest or fewer bunches on the trees. Now we remove the dead leaves, like I mentioned. We also remove the epiphytes or parasitic plants, and we also remove all leaves that are below the second leaves that support the oldest bunch, so that by the time we are harvesting, we have fewer leaves that we have to cut. So it reduces on the labor requirement during harvesting. On young plants that are less than 5 years, when you're pruning, you're basically concentrating on epiphytes and parasitic plants, which are mainly the ferns on the trunk and in the crown. In case the machete cannot reach there, you can put a knife on a pole which is made of bamboo or normal tree species, or it can be made from a metallic pipe. You remove dead leaves for these mature plants. You remove the leaves, excess leaves below the branches, whether the branches are mature or not. And then we ensure that we maintain about 48 fully developed leaves for plants that have not been able to bear branches yet, because now we will need these leaves to help in photosynthesis. Then also avoid taking away what you have pruned from the plant, especially if they are not diseased. So these are going to help you in mulching, and they also help you in preserving the nutrients within the field, because later on they will decompose. Therefore, pruning will make it easier for you to see the ripe branches. It will allow the detached fruits from ripe branches to fall down, and these are the signs that one looks at to know that the branches are ripe. So if you find those fruits that have fallen down, then it is a signal that your branches are ripe and they are ready for harvest. Then it also reduces the loss of detached fruits that get stuck between the weeds and those that get stuck between the excess leaves on the trunk. It also improves airflow, thereby increasing the spread of pollen, which contributes to increasing the number of fruits that on the branches. When we are harvesting, we have to also know that the ripeness affects the quality and the quantity of the oil that we'll get when processing is done. So only ensure that you harvest those that are fully ripe. So when a bunch is ripe, the color changes from black to orange, and you will normally see 5 to 15 fruits falling off from that bunch by themselves without any form of force. So harvest trees every 10 days, and this means that you will harvest 3 times within a month when you start harvesting. And in the younger plants, which are 3 to 4 years, you only catch the fruit bunches, but when they are above 5 years, and when you're cutting the bunches, you're also supposed to cut the leaves that are supporting the bunches. You also have to collect the bunches as well as the loose fruits that have fallen under the trees, because all these provide oil during processing. These are then transported to the mill within a day, because when you leave them for a longer time, they'll start losing weight, and some of them might start drying. And then, depending on the maturity of the plant or the height of the plant, you can use a cutlass, or you can use a knife, a hooked knife attached on the pole, or a bamboo stick. For the plants that more than 7 years old, because those ones will be quite tall. But those between 3 to 4 years might not require you to attach a long pole, because they will be short. And so the way harvesting is done, and the way transportation of the fresh fruit bunches is done, will definitely influence the amount and the quality of oil produced. And this is mainly because when you injure these fruits, the fatty acid content in the palm oil extracted from these fruits increases. And in addition, fatty acids will also increase given increase in time, and that's why we want to transport the fresh fruit bunches as fast as possible, so that they can be sterilized in order to reduce the amount of free fatty acids that are formed within these fruits. So the processing or the oil extraction process takes 4 stages. The first one is sterilization, where the bunches are exposed to a very hot steam. Done for about 45 to 75 minutes. This process deactivates the enzyme that breaks down oil into free fatty acids, which affect the quality of the oil. So when sterilization is done, the enzyme that lead to this formation of the free fatty acids is deactivated. And then the steam also loosens the fruits from the bunches, making it easy for them to go off during the batch stripping stage. And then the live stream of steam will also help coagulate mucilage for easier oil recovery. So the second stage is the batch stripping stage, and here the sterilized bunches are fed into a rotary drum threshing machine. So this threshing machine will separate the fruits from the bunch, and then the loose fruits will pass through gaps that are within the drum, and then the empty batch will be discharged. And what we are interested in will be the fruits that have been detached. Then we will go to the third step, where we do oil extraction, and here the fruits are fed into a digester, where they are stirred into a homogeneous mash, and this is pressed to extract the crude oil under pressure. So some people do this the local way, but if it's in a factory where there are machines, then the machines will do all the work. Then the other stage is oil clarification and purification, where the crude oil that was extracted, which contains a mixture of oil, water, and solids, which are fine, is passed through a separating system. Now the oil is then dried to a moisture content of below 0.1%, preferably using vacuum drying to reduce oxidation risks that are associated with drying. Then the purified and dried oil is stored in tanks around 50 degrees Celsius to prevent solidification and to slow down oxidation before transportation is done. After that, we also have another procedure of extraction of kernel oil. We call this kernel recovery. So after extraction of the oil, the remaining fiber, which contains the nut, are separated. So after this, the remaining fiber and the nuts are separated. The fiber allowed to heat again. It can be heated again, and another round or a second grade of oil can be removed from this fiber, and this oil is used in making soap. But then the nuts are cracked and the kernel is recovered or removed. It is then dried and set for oil extraction. And what we form from this kernel is what we call the palm kernel oil. And this is also clarified, purified, and stored in a similar way we stored the crude palm oil. Now let's look at the diseases and their management. The first disease is Fusarium or vesicular wilt. This is caused by a soil-borne fungus called Fusarium oxysporum, which enters the plant through the roots and initiates infection, hence causing loss, which is between 25 to 50. This can be prevented or managed by using resistant varieties, maintaining proper drainage and avoiding waterlogged conditions, as well as crop rotation and fallowing to break the life cycle of the fungus within the soil. We can also use chemical means, for example, fungicides like benomil and carbendazim for seed treatment before planting the seeds within the nursery, and for early stage protection, so you can spray the seedlings with this fungicide as well. You can also consider solarization and application of biofungicides like trichoderma to suppress soil-borne pathogens, and this is basically done before planting. And there's also the basal stem rot, which is caused by also a fungus called Ganoderma. It causes up to 80% loss in case the cycles are repeated. So that means you have to manage it as early as possible. For you to manage it, you should remove and destroy infected trees immediately to prevent spread. You should practice crop rotation with non-host plants to reduce inoculum in the soil. You should apply fungicides around the base of the palm tree in the early stages of infection. So monitoring is very important so that you can detect the infection when it's not too late. Then applying organic matter, especially compost or animal manure, will help enhance the soil health and reduce the fungal activity, as well as improve the plant vigor. So the plants might be, so the plants will be having more vigor to fight the disease. Then we have brown germ, which is seen as brown spots that appear on the emerging plumule. This spreads and coalesce as the embryo develops and the tissue becomes slimy and rotten. The disease develops most readily under moist conditions and in temperatures that are between 38 to 39 degrees Celsius. So for you to reduce the disease, you ensure good air circulation within the garden. You ensure good air circulation and avoid excess moisture within the nurseries. Avoid planting in areas prone to high temperatures and humidity. Then apply fungicidal seed treatments such as Thuram to prevent infection during germination. So this disease is basically more notorious in the nurseries. Then other diseases include leaf spots and anthracnose, and these can be prevented by removing or managed by removing and destroying infected leaves to prevent the spread of the fungus, using resistant or tolerant varieties, maintaining proper spacing and pruning, because improper spacing can lead to environments that favor the spread of the disease. And because these are fungal diseases, you can also use fungicides, including mancozeb or copper-based products to control the leaf spots. Then for the pests, we have the orange yellow beetle, which feeds on the oil palm leaves, leading to defoliation. And you know, when leaves are defoliated, then the amount of light that is taken up by the carry out photosynthesis will be reduced, hence affecting the yield of the plant. So we can use biological, we can use chemical, and we can use culture control methods. The biological control methods that are recommended for this pest are using predators like ladybird beetles, which feed on the larvae of this beetle. Then we can also use chemicals, which are insecticides, such as pyrethroids, and we are also supposed to ensure regular monitoring so that we can apply timely measures control the pest. Then we have oil palm brown black stem beetle, and the larvae of this beetle is the one that bores into the trunk of the palm trees, causing internal damage, and this weakens the stems of the palm. This results into stunting, into yellowing of leaves, and in case the infestation is high, then the plants might collapse. Then the holes that are left within the stem can be an entry point for bacteria and fungus, hence leading to spread of diseases. So this can also be culturally controlled by removing and destroying infected palm trees. And then systemic insecticides can also be injected into the trunk to kill the larvae which is in the stem. And then consistent monitoring is also recommended so that early interventions are done. Then we have the oil palm blast vector, which transmits the oil palm blast disease, and this disease results into wilting and dieback in young oil palm plants. This disease spreads very fast, and the infected palm trees show symptoms of yellowing of leaves, stunting, and then yield loss. This can be managed through culture practices like regular monitoring and removal of infected palm trees, then using insecticides like the dimethylate to control the vector, and applying integrated pest management approaches like biological controls and so many others. Then we also have the oil palm black weevil, which damages oil palms by boring in the plant trunk as well, and feeding on the inner tissue. And this weakens the plant and affects the vigor of the plant. This can be managed by cultural practices of removing dead and heavily damaged palm trees to prevent buildup of the weevils, and chemical control using contact insecticides to kill the weevils. But regular monitoring for signs of weevils is also recommended so that controls are applied before significant damage in the field. Then we have the mealybugs, which suck sap from the oil palm trees, and they weaken the palm trees and therefore reduce their growth. Heavy infestation can lead to yellowing of the leaves, wilting and stunting of the entire plant, and reduced fruit production. And then these mealybugs also produce honeydew that promotes the growth of the sooty mold, which impairs the photosynthetic capacity of the plant. So biological control is a suitable option where we use predators such as the parasitic wasps and the ladybird beetles. But chemical control can also be done by using systemic insecticides. And then regular monitoring is recommended so that there is early detection and control of the pests before they lead to drastic effects. We also have the termites, which cause significant damage by feeding on the roots and the trunk of the oil palm trees. This weakens the palm trees, making them susceptible to wind damage. And then in extreme cases, the infestation can lead to death of these trees. So the termites can be controlled by having good field hygiene and applying chemicals like termiticides, especially organophosphates, around the base of the infected plants. Regular inspection will also help to ensure that you detect the infestation early and you control the termites before they cause very bad effects. Thank you for listening.